I would like to welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled City Commission meeting. Our first order of business, we're all going to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have first order of business is our consent agenda. Trust everybody has read the minutes.
Move for approval.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is passed. On our regular agenda, item number 4, we're going to consider a temporary alcohol permit for the Saddle Club Rodeo on August 4th and 5th.
Yes, you have a request in your packet, or the application in your packet, from Whiskey Wagon, and they are wanting to have a temporary alcohol permit for the rodeo. This is as part of the Harvey County Fair, and staff has reviewed this and is okay with this request.
Is that a fenced-in area or a certain building?
Yes, that will be a fenced-in area.
Okay, all right.
That's part of the requirement of the temporary alcohol permit.
Well, I thought it was, but I didn't see any
They,
diagrams
yeah,
or anything.
but they have that with the state already, so they already have a state license. They're a caterer, so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 5, we're going to establish a date and time to conduct the revenue neutral rate public hearing in the 2024 budget hearing. Donna?
Yes. I'll just go through this for everyone listening so they'll know what's going on. The revenue neutral rate was established in 2021. This law repealed the tax lid law that was previously in place. The revenue neutral rate is the tax rate in mills that would generate the same property tax revenue in dollars as levied the previous year using the city's current assessed valuation. And that's clear as mud, I'm sure.
Yeah, that doesn't,
In June, we were notified by the Harvey County Clerk that our revenue neutral rate would be 65.221. That would be a loss of 5.162 mills and $789,000 in valuation increase. At the July 11th meeting, Commission passed the notice of intent to exceed the R&R and inform the county clerk. We are required to hold a public hearing on exceeding the revenue neutral rate sometime after August 20th. Also, prior to adopting the final budget, Kansas law states that a taxing district must hold a public hearing at one of our meetings so that any concerns can be voiced by taxpayers. The second public hearing must be held after the R&R hearing. And there's a form now that they've developed that we can advertise for both at the same time. This has to be published in the city's official paper at least 10 days in advance of the hearings. You all worked through several months of getting twice monthly budget updates, and then we had 2 work sessions to complete the budget that we have now. Commission instructed staff to increase the mill levy by 1.5 mills, $229,000 in the general fund, and transfer 1 mill, which is worth $152,886 from the bond and interest fund. This would allow 2 current positions that were paused to be filled, one for fire EMS and one for police, as well as to keep the general fund reserve balance close to the required 15% of budgeted expenditures. The other tax fund remained the same as 2023. The total recommended not to exceed budget for 2024 is $58,668,728. compared to $56,136,530 for 2023. Once published, the Commission may lower the expenditures, but no increases can be made without a new notice being published and hearings rescheduled, all within the time frame before August 20th. So I just need your approval to publish the notice of hearing to exceed the revenue neutral rate and budget hearing. And the date set is August 22nd at 7 o'clock here in Commission chambers.
And just in case anybody else is listening, excuse me, sir, if you want to go ahead.
You're fine.
I was going to say, just in case somebody's listening or interested, that is the public hearing where anyone can come and speak, and we're happy to take comments and feedback at that point in time.
At the first hearing, you have to have a roll call. After you listen to the public hearing and close it, you have to have a roll call vote, and each of you have to be listed separately how you vote. And then you have to pass a resolution accepting the revenue neutral rate. And then you have the other public hearing, and then you accept the budget.
And that is all per state statute, so we will make sure we comply.
Okay.
I move we approve the publication of notice of hearing
I'll second.
and set the date as of August 22nd at 7 o'clock p.m. here in the chambers.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 6, we're going to consider a resolution setting the public hearing for the Reinvestment Housing Incentive District within the city for Sand Creek Station 5th Edition. Rebecca?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and let the developer, Andrew Reese, talk a little bit about his project. He brought some visuals for you of what the product will be, and then we'll get into the technical detail, and I'll pass these out right now for you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So this project is Sand Creek, I believe, as you guys are probably aware. Working on what would be the northwest corner there. Two-phase development, single-family homes is what we're looking at putting in there. Roughly 71 lots is what the plat has come out to distribute. Like I said, done in 2 phases. Looking to do single-family homes like what is being presented to you guys with this packet of information. So plans range from 3-bed, 2-bath to 4-bed, actually 5-bed, 3-bath. As you'll see in that book, we stick to the plans that you're seeing in front of you. And ideally, we would work through first phase in a timely manner, get into the second phase and fill in the space within hopefully a few years' time. So I'll let Rebecca get into the technical details, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
All right, thank you. As you've done this process before, it's been considered a rural housing incentive district. That was updated this past May with the legislation, so now it's the Reinvestment Housing Incentive District. So just a quick terminology change as we've gone through the process. This is the second step of that, the second resolution setting the public hearing. And like Andrew mentioned, we've got a good plan in front of us. We're hoping that you agree to set the public hearing date for September 12th, which it keeps with statutory requirements for this type of thing. And at the public hearing, the development plan, which is in your packet, will be approved as final, and then we'll have a 30-day waiting period while we hear if there's any opposition to said plan. And we'll stand for any questions.
If there are no questions, we do have a couple maps on your screen here. So the area outlined in red there at the bottom right here, that is the area that Mr. Reese is developing, and this is the existing housing in that area at Sand Creek Station Golf Course, as mentioned. And then the second map here is the plat map that shows the actual, the way that it would be laid out with the cul-de-sacs, and Mr. Reese mentioned a variety of sizes of homes and price points.
I think of rural housing incentives. So what are the developer? I know we've had RHIDs, but typically there's been with those some requirement to guarantee a number, and that wasn't houses necessarily, units that would be income qualifying. That doesn't apply at all in this. Is that right?
No, ma'am. That is usually a moderate income housing.
Is it
or
moderate?
Low income housing tax credits
Okay.
are those. The other ones we've done, Mr. Reese has been a part of it, was the Enclave at 14.
Yes.
So that's probably the last one that you guys have seen, but there have been numerous around the community. The incentive district, just if you'll remember, rebates the growth of the property taxes over 25 years to the actual cost of the developer. And so what you'll see in your packet as you read through the development plan that's proposed are those really big infrastructure costs. That's what it's helping to rebate, is the land work, the site planning, the architectural design, through the cost of that increase of property tax. So The property tax is paid in per usual. It's anything above what we're currently receiving right now towards, and with the state and the school districts, a small portion deducted from that gets rebated back to the developer for their actual cost receipts. We keep that up for a number of years. So it is a long-term incentive for a developer, so we're really excited when one decides to utilize it, because it is not a fast turnaround, and there is no actual funds expended from our budget. It's just, we're keeping that property tax value to what it is now, which is currently agricultural.
Are these billed as they're sold, or are they spec homes? How is this developed?
So our current model with some developments around the Wichita area is it's spec built. So we'll build the homes based on spec timelines, and then we sell them as they're being built.
Okay.
Ideally, we don't do any custom home building. It is actually all spec building.
Okay.
I applaud you for wanting to attack the more affordable housing, if you will.
It's,
Even though to some people, this still looks like, a lot of dollars. But I know in the world of building homes, this does attack that, and I applaud you.
it's a bit of a challenge.
It is, yes.
It's not an easy task to hit the price points that we're trying to hit, especially in today's world and in today's construction. The RHID is another layer to that product that I feel like isn't out there in the marketplace right now, which ultimately helps benefit the end user, which is the homeowner, in getting these homes more affordable.
Because remember, the RHID is in lieu of us spreading specials that the homeowner would pick up for a 20-year, for water, sewers, streets, sidewalks, those kinds of things. So RHID is in lieu of spreading the specials to the lots. To Mr. Reese's point, it makes it that much more affordable and less money that they would either have to pay off up front or invest as they go along. So that becomes the developer's cost versus the homeowner and user's cost.
I love your pamphlet. It's
Thank you.
very simple,
Thank you.
put together
Thank you.
quite well.
You can scan QR codes there to see virtual tours of the homes. We do have several of these homes built up in the Wichita area. But like I said, you can scan those, see virtual tours of what they'll look like on the inside. Again, all spec built per what you see there. And we ideally will move through it in a quicker time frame than what, traditional custom home building processes would move.
Do you put in the lawns and?
Yes, sir.
And
Yep.
So they'll add fence or whatever other landscaping?
So typically what we'll do is irrigation and sod with a basic landscape package, just a starter landscape package, typically to suffice whatever homeowners association that would be in place. And then from there, we let the consumers ultimately take it from there.
But the roads, the sewer, all that, them.
That's part of the RHID that will be
Right.
all, mostly the infrastructure. So water, sewer, streets, sidewalks, mass grading, all those kinds of things can be put into it, I believe.
And
I know
and
Rebecca's
the
changed a little
developer-
bit.
The developer pays that, the city doesn't pay that.
Correct.
The developer recoups that through the
Through the
difference
tax
between
rebate.
the
Yep, yep,
current
the-
tax
yep,
rate
yep.
and the newly developed tax rate as a rebate.
Yes, sir. Yep. So we'll never have
Just trying
less
to
than what we're
get that
making
out
now.
there
I know,
for
it's a little,
Yeah, it's,
can be confusing, and
It's
we have,
betting on the future.
well, I
all
was
good.
thinking of is it MHID, of the?
the MIH, Moderate Income Housing Grant, and that's a grant, and that does have different requirements
So
and
my apologies
stipulations.
if that was insulting.
Not at all.
Okay,
Not at all.
it's always helpful to understand, and that's very clear, so thank you.
Right, and Commissioners, to those questions, in your draft that you've been given, it's on page 7 of the packet. That does list the reimbursable costs for these RHIDs, the land acquisition, the site work, which includes the road, streets, parking, et cetera, the electric, landscaping, and any fencing, the monument, the sign, the entry, or any fencing around the development as a whole instead of individual fencing, the engineer and architectural design costs, any legal or accounting fees, finance, and then, of course, a contingency fee, as we know that is always an important line item. So those are the costs that can be recouped by that increase in property taxes over the 25-year period.
And it's a nice way to, I thank you for wanting to invest in our community, and you're bearing that risk.
It's
It
a
is.
large
Wow.
item.
But you wouldn't do it if you didn't see the opportunity.
And that's, the opportunity here is to actually truly create housing that I do feel is truly needed. And this is just a vital tool in helping create that product as a whole.
Okay.
We have a resolution number.
That would be G-1316.
I'll make a motion that we approve G-1316.
I will
Oh.
second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, item number 7, we're going to receive bids and award contract for the 2023 CCLIP project K-15 mill and overlay, subject to KDOT approval. Suzanne?
Well, I was hoping we were going to award bids, but we are not this evening. We had a bid opening this week, and we found out the day of the bid. We knew we were going to probably have 2 bids for this, because this is a big project. There's 2 big paving contractors, because some of the area larger contractors that bid on KDOT were consolidated this time last year. And KDOT had a big bid opening the day before our bid opening, and one of those contractors took a very large job, called us and said, we're not going to be able to bid on this because we've committed now to another project. So we had 1 bid from 1 contractor, and the costs, depending on whether you're looking at the base bid or the alternates, were anywhere from double the price to triple the price. So I am recommending that we reject bids. I have talked with the contractor just to find out exactly what kind of drove up costs on this, and it's all over the board. We're going to make a few changes to the project. We had 3 pieces of paving that we were going to redo with this project, remembering that KDOT was also going to help fund it. But this was going to be on K-15 or Main Street from the railroad tracks, BNSF tracks, up to 11th Street. And then it skipped up to the north of the 12th Street intersection, began at 13th Street and went north to the city limits. And then another little piece on 12th Street from Sand Creek over to Main. Well, when we got the bids, then we knew we were not going to be able to move forward with the project. We still had our annual overlay contractor in town, and they had not moved their milling machine. So quickly on Friday, I asked them if they could go ahead and give us a price, if we could base it off of the prices that they gave us for the overlay. And we signed a change order, and we probably saved close to $50,000 on that little piece of 12th Street. We went ahead and had it milled and overlaid. That would be there by Wendy's and the 2 banks. We weren't able to give a lot of notice to the neighboring properties, but we knew that we wanted to get that piece done, and then these other 2 pieces, we will go ahead and I'm working with KDOT now. We're going to bring something back to be able to bid this maybe in a month. And it will be for construction next year. One of the big issues is the contractors are all very, very busy. And if we can bid it for work to be done in the spring, then hopefully that'll bring down some of the prices, and we're going to adjust a few things in the project to try and get it down closer to our numbers. And we will bid 1 piece of it as an alternate. So tonight, I would ask that your action would be to reject all bids, and then I will bring something back at a later date, hopefully at the next meeting, for us to move forward with a different type of bid.
And I have a question.
Mhm.
Who's doing that part on North Kansas out there by the Centennial?
Well, that's a
That's-
part of the annual overlay
Okay.
project. So the milling and the overlay will be done by Kansas Paving, who was doing the stuff on
Yeah,
12th
okay.
Street. But the base repair work is being done by our city crews.
Okay.
So we're constantly trying to figure out how we can put pieces together here to stretch our dollar
Yeah.
as best we can.
Okay.
So we need 2 motions, one to receive them and then another to reject them? Or
No, you just need to reject all bids.
I'd make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, We have officially rejected it.
Mobilization kind of went
Through the roof.
bazooka, didn't it?
Yeah.
I know, it's, a couple of weeks ago, we had a sewer bid opening and we had 9 contractors and that was great. And then this week, we had 1 contractor and double, triple the price. The bidding climate is unique.
Okay, item number 8, we're going to consider an RFQ for an airport engineer process. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners. About every 5 to 7 years, the city is required to go through a quality-based selection process. The FAA requires us to go through this process, and this is to select an engineering firm that will serve on retainer for airport work. If we have a specific project, then we bring that to you and move forward with that project as funds are available. But we still have to go through the process of having an engineer that is on retainer to do that work and to fill out the task orders for any of the work that is anticipated. I have included a copy of a draft request for proposal that we will send out tomorrow, assuming you approve this. And, we will send it out as soon as I hear back from FAA. We're waiting on them to approve it. And then we will send out the request for qualifications, and a committee made up of the airport manager, myself, and the county administrator will review those proposals and make a selection that we would bring back and present to you at a future meeting of the selected consulting firm. This process does not cost the city any money at all. We just need to be able to move forward so we have somebody in place when we need to move forward with another project out at the airport. So we would ask that you approve moving forward with the RFQ process, subject to FAA approval, and authorize staff to sign any associated paperwork.
I would make that motion.
And I'll second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 9, Planning Commission. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners. We have one item that was considered at the last Planning Commission for your review, and it is an application for a special use permit, which is something we just talked about earlier this evening. And this is the first special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit that has come through since we have passed our new zoning regulations. And this is at 908 Trinity Drive. They're requesting permission to turn in an old building or shed that is currently on the property, move it. I think we have a drawing that shows this. Move it over to the side, and then it would be considered an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. The Planning Commission, they heard this at their last meeting and the previous meeting, so they took 2 months to deliberate over this. This was the first ADU SUP, accessory dwelling unit, special use permit that came through them since the new zoning regulations, and they wanted to make sure they got it right. And so they had a lot of discussion on this, but in the end, they went ahead and they approved the process, and they approved the SUP, but they approved it subject to some conditions. And one of those was that they needed to have placement of a separate address for that ADU visible from the street. And the expiration was set of December 31st, 2025 for that SUP, then a review of that SUP would occur administratively. That would be with our staff, unless there were complaints. If there were complaints, then it would go back to the Planning Commission for them to go through the review process again. They also put a stipulation of a maximum of 4 people are allowed to stay in the unit. And if the primary home is sold, the SUP needs to be reapplied for. This SUP is specific to the homeowner in this address. It cannot be transferred to another address, and it cannot be transferred to a new property owner. And the motion then passed unanimously with the Planning Commission.
What does it mean when it's placement of a separate address? Does that mean like if their home is at 908, is this 908 and a half?
We would review that. Sometimes it's a half, sometimes it's an A. If we have room in our addressing, it could be a completely separate. It just depends how things were addressed in that area.
But it does have to have a separate address.
It does have to have a separate address, and it has to be visible from the street. So typically, you're not going to have somebody, if you were, whether it's a mother-in-law's home or if it was utilized as an Airbnb or something like that, you wouldn't have them passing through the primary structure to get to that structure. They would go in through another entrance, maybe in a fence or the side of the house. So it needs to be posted somewhere there so that it's visible, so that if there was an emergency, our emergency services folks could respond and know which address. There, yeah, that drawing shows that it's currently, there is a building that is attached to the detached, it's not attached, but it's very near the detached garage. It's too close to meet the current regulations, so it's being moved. And then the inside work would be done if it hasn't been done already.
And the applicant agreed to the stipulation?
The applicant agreed to the stipulations, and so now the city commission is asked to receive the recommendation from the planning commission and then consider approval of the SUP at this address, and we would recommend that you approve it with the conditions as stated. So we need two separate actions on this.
Well, I would move that we receive the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes.
Maybe it's been asked, can I ask before we do this one, was there any neighbors that showed up to the planning commission that opposed?
No,
Or had,
there was not.
okay.
We have a
Resolution number would be G-1317.
Move that we approve resolution G-1317.
I second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Item 10, we're going to receive information on budget billing, levelized payment for the water utility. Donna?
I do have a little slide there. I don't know if you can see it. It's in your packet. At a resident's request, we have researched the possibility of implementing a levelized payment plan for city utility bills. Our current software does support levelized payments, and they call their program budget billing. Staff identified 4 cities that have this type of plan: Belleville, Lawrence, Marshall, Missouri, and Gardner. We kind of just were reaching out to everybody. No one close here had any, so we kind of went out a little further and found out what they had. I also talked to Guyman, Oklahoma, because they have Encode 9 like we do, but they do not use this program. We contacted them and asked them a few questions. They all have a policy in place, so everyone knows how it's done up front. They all calculate the average payment by taking the previous 12 months, dividing it by 11 or 12, and one of them kind of rounds up a little to the next 10. This allows the customers to build a cushion during higher use times. Participants must have no outstanding arrears due on their account, no late penalties in the previous 12 months, or at least, I think you can maybe have 1 or 2 on some of the cities, and 12 months of service. If you move, you don't participate for another year until you get 12 months of history built up on that new home, because each home is a little different. There's no cost to enroll. It's strictly voluntary. You have a signed agreement with the utility billing office. Your meters are still read, and you still get a bill, just like usual, so you can keep up on your what you're using. There are semi-annual or annual settling of the account, and they call this truing up. Figure out if you're off, higher or lower. The city would reserve the right to settle the account at any time if that deferred balance exceeds a certain amount. And you'll see on this one of them has, if you get up to $200 over what you should have, or 150% of your real, they have you true up. One of the cities, Lawrence, I think it is, that makes it mandatory to enroll in auto pay. And customers pay because on the Encode system, 3 of these people have Encode 9. We have Encode 10, same program. Once you're enrolled, the system no longer gives you a late penalty. And we have no way of knowing who that might be, because we'd have to check. We get like 1,500 late notices a month we send out. So we'd have to look through all those to make sure none of them were budget billing people. And you can't pay any more or any less. It kind of messes up the calculation. So that's a couple of things that we found out. If we were going to do it, we'd have to decide on a number of elements. would we use running or fixed calculation? Fixed would be you take either your year and divide it by 12 or 11, whatever you want. Or the running calculation is you take 12 months and they just kind of move along. Each month changes a little bit. So your amount changes a little bit, but you don't ever have to true up. And that's what Lawrence does. If your current usage and you get to your true up point, would you have to have a lump sum to catch up, or would we average it and let them catch it up over the next 3 months or something? You know, kind of like your escrow when it goes kind of haywire and you have to true that up. How customers would be disallowed if they fail to pay or they have late payments, that would have to be in there. Right now, our residential sewer fees are already averaged. We take the winter months consumption of water and recalculate that every year in April. We recalculate that. And the refuge is also a static amount. So the only part of this that would be averaged would be the water. And as you know, that's a fluid. Right. It's a fluid commodity. Because you have different household members, they change. You have guests, you have a running toilet, you water your lawn, you wash your car, you have rate increases. All that would make it different. So we'd have to closely monitor this because we don't want anybody to fall too far behind because it's hard for people to catch up. Part of our job is to not let you get that far behind because you just can't catch up. We'd have a learning curve, of course, for our staff, but we can do that. There's no problem. It's just we need policies and procedures written well before we start this. And the financial implications would be, besides more staff time, there probably isn't any unless people would skip out on their bill. And usually if you are good enough paying it every month, you're not going to skip out. It's just the time. Because right now the software doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles to yell at us when something goes wrong. So we have to find that on ourselves. So we'd have to always be having to watch these people. And, you know, every few months we'd have to check everybody, make sure they're all doing it right. Right now it takes about 2 weeks annually per zone to do the sewer averaging. It just takes a while to get it all in there, make sure it's all okay for everybody that had a leak. We have to make sure that isn't counted against them. And so we're already doing a lot of work for that piece of it. So it's just the water. So that was my reasoning for really not wanting to do it, just because it's that much more time. But it can be done, and if we have enough interest. You can see on the chart, Belleville, which has gas, is the only other one that had gas instead of just water, wastewater, and refuge. They only have 70 people. It's a small town, but she said it's only 70, so even to her, it was a small amount. Gardner, which is about our size, has 542 people. Lawrence only has 171, which is odd because they're a lot bigger.
But it might mean the world to that 171.
Right.
So, I mean,
Marshall, Missouri has 200 plus, so they kind of go everywhere.
I was pleased to get the report and our conversations and everything, because it really sounds like you've got more trust in your software and that, you know, a little more confidence that we can do this. So I really think it's something that we need to put together, maybe a policy and how it would look. And
I was wondering, the gentleman that has requested this, he's not here tonight, but I'm wondering, because people do often confuse the utility bill as the water bill. So I'm wondering if he was referring to the entire bill, do you know? Or if he was truly referring just to the water portion of the bill? I don't know. Okay, this is, I'm assuming, you know what happens when you assume, but I'm assuming he's thinking of the whole bill. I don't know if he's breaking it apart like I did. Yeah, that's why I was wondering.
But only a third of it, really.
but really, we're on.
It's going to be one whole thing.
Are the people in the billing office now going to be able to manage this, or are we going to have to hire someone else to do it? Or is it going to add a staff position eventually?
Well, I'm already would like to have a part-timer. We're just so busy down there. But we'll just have to
But if
see.
we're already so busy that we need to add a part-time position, is this going to make it even more busy? Because if you're saying we're going to have to go through this every month to make sure that,
I don't know if we have, it depends on how many people we have.
Right.
Yeah.
no,
We have
I'm just-
70, we can go
I'm
in each
saying I'm not
account.
in favor
look.
of it if we have to add a position or it's a cost increase to the city. I'm not in favor of it.
And
I think
only-
if you want to average it yourself, you can look at your bill over the past 12 months and you can figure out how much your average was and budget accordingly.
I also think we spend a lot of money on this software to not leverage it to the community's benefit.
It doesn't sound like it's a software leverage though, as much as it is going to be a,
If we're
Cost-
doing it manually, we're not using the software to its fullest.
but from what I understand though, it can't do everything that it needs to do average billing.
Well, it will average it and keep it going. It just doesn't tell us when things go haywire.
Right. So somebody's going to have to monitor that every month.
Or every couple months, they might get
Yeah.
kicked out after a couple months.
But you're
we
not
find
going to
out.
be able to tell how this works until you see how many people enrolled in
Yeah.
this.
It
And
really
then
is an
in the-
unknown.
After the first year, if you have enough people on there that warrant hiring another person, then we are talking about a possible mill levy increase if we have to add a person to the budget, because when you start thinking about, you don't think so?
Well, that wouldn't be the mill levy, that would be a utility rate.
Oh, utility, gosh.
Right,
that's-
remember,
right.
this is one of
That's
the
right.
enterprise funds.
Okay.
Utilities stand alone, and that's why we always
Okay.
talk about utilities
Thank you
and
for
the
that
airport and
reminder.
Meridian Center and Sand Creek Station, the golf course. They are all enterprise funds, and they all stand alone. This is not the general fund.
Okay, thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
Utilities are split
I think
between,
some of these things, we can have some reporting built for us that would bubble those concerns up on a monthly.
that
At a
gets, that
cost.
gets pricey. I don't know if they want to do that. But you never know, they could if there's enough interest in it. But that does they won't do it unless there's enough people wanting it.
So how do we find out? Should we do something to find out if there are enough people
That's what I was thinking.
to want to do this and really emphasize that it's just the water portion of the bill? Because I think that is going to be one of the things that a lot of people might get confused over. Is it my entire utility bill, or is it?
Well, it's going to end up being the entire bill. I mean, the whole bill is going to be averaged now because all three pieces are.
Individually, they
Well,
would be
right.
averaged.
Usually they're averaged, but it's going to end up being the same every month. I mean,
Yes.
Well, they already
won't
are,
notice.
but somebody else may think that bill that's already averaged might be re-averaged as far as
Yeah, we would definitely have
taking
to.
the totals.
We would definitely have to do some public education and some
right.
really clear language up front. But yes, it sounds like, I'm looking at Ms. Aaron because she's more of an expert on the survey tool that we have, but that might be actually an excellent question to put on one of our survey tools that we have available to us, and just say, hey, we're, as long as we are super clear in the language that, and try to make it as simplified and uncomplicated as possible to say, look, this is how it works now, and this is how it could work. Tell us if you might be interested, and then maybe we can gauge the interest point and the touch point on that. I mean,
Well, everybody that has a utility bill now knows that you can get average billing. Westar and Kansas Gas offer it on everything. And
Sure.
how many times have the city been approached about this in the last 5 years to do average billing? One time in a city commission meeting in the last 4 years, or 3.5, which is this gentleman.
to my
So
knowledge,
it's
this
not
is
that
the
people
only
don't
time.
know this
Yeah,
is an
I've never-
option or something, or like other utility bills don't offer it. So you can ask it in a survey, but I don't think it's been a huge request.
It's up to you guys.
We could even do a pilot program with some fake addresses and throw in some meter readings and see how it looks for the next 3 months and see what reports are there and not pay one of them and see how the system lets you know. Is there a report? You have to have a way of being able to pull reports off of people who paid or late paid or something.
well, that gets pulled by having a late notice assigned to that account. These ones do not have they cannot have one put on.
But
This
you have
kicks
to
them
have a
off.
way to run some sort of ad hoc reports in this software. And if we don't, then we bought the wrong damn software.
Well, it's how you ask the questions.
Exactly, it is.
Yep,
The curiosity is all I want to see. Let's run a pilot for 3 or 4 months, put some fake meter readings in, pay some, don't pay some, see how it looks, and see what reports you need in order to manage it. I think you may end up being refreshed with just how good it might work.
Is there any concern with people that water their yard in the summertime and don't? I mean, my bill averages from $130 in the winter months to almost $400 in the summer.
And that's what it's supposed to do, is kind of spread that around to the next
Right.
year.
I mean, I know that my bill's going to cost me more in the summer because we water with our city water in our yard. And so there's a huge discrepancy there. If you use it all summer, but you're paying the average from what was the winter, there's going to be a huge balance is owed.
Well, you're going to start with last year's summer and winter together. So you're going to start with that.
But
So
my bill's on
that
the
will
lower
cover you
end.
the next year.
My bill's on the lower end more months than it is on the higher end.
But we're going to capture those high months.
Yeah, because you're doing 12
It would total,
12 months.
and if we average it by 11, that's even a little bit higher than it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the average billing for electric before, and when we had our house now is all electric, and we owe more, our balance becomes pretty significant because when we didn't have an all-electric house, when we had gas, so we were using a lot less electricity in the winter months. We always had a balance in that early part of we always
Credit.
owed more than what we were
Oh.
paying because we were using a lot more electricity
Yeah.
in May, June, July, August. That almost follows the water cycle too in my house. That those 4 months are definitely, I mean, it was kind of low this past month, which was $310, but,
And that's without level payment billing?
no, that's my
That's the
water.
actual usage?
That's the water, or it's the utility bill for the city of Newton. I don't want to say water bill.
Oh, I'm saying,
Yeah.
But I think also that's why we'd want to maybe true up every 6 months or so, instead of go a whole year where they couldn't catch up, you know?
If you
We'd have to
started
just
like
watch it.
November 1st and divided by 11,
So you get,
you would get far enough ahead.
To Commissioner Sinnott's point, if the bench is so amenable, we can definitely check into the options for how we could pull those reports. If we can pull those reports, can we do a couple of ghost accounts, so to speak, and just try it out and see how it looks? Let's get that information for you, sir, and then we can get back with y'all and give you a little more accurate information to go off of. And again, we didn't really anticipate you would make a decision
No,
on this
this is
this evening.
just
We just wanted to make sure we were following up.
Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Rich wants to volunteer and come in and help with that service.
I would.
We may take him up on
I
it.
would.
Well, really, put 2 or 3 people on that program and see what happens.
it's
Yeah,
hard to,
Don't pay,
Let's
Rick.
see what the options might be.
I can't not pay.
it's
it's a
hard to
problem.
put ghost accounts in there because it's going to mess up all our consumption reports, is the only thing I'm thinking. So we might have to pick some employees or something and try it with.
We can figure something out, I think. But,
There's
yeah.
ways.
A couple that don't mind having late fees on their account or something.
You can use me. I usually have a late fee.
Well, thank you for that work.
yes, thank you.
We'll look forward to what you bring back to us. Nobody has signed up for citizen forum, so let's go around the horn. Commissioner Stinnett.
I have nothing. Thank you.
I actually don't have a lot either, other than it's hot outside. Drink lots of water.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Nothing.
Just thank you. Appreciate it every time.